Comedian Alfie Brown is the latest victim of cancel culture after offence archaeologists dug back through the years and found footage of him using the N-word on stage in 2015. I can't show the clip here because it would get me in trouble with YouTube, but you can see the full thing on my Patreon for free. There's a link below. Basically, Alfie made some points about language, racism and virtue signalling and used the N-word while doing so. Angry people on Twitter said that Alfie's use of the N-word was offensive, and they're absolutely correct. Alfie should not have used the N-word. The N-word belongs to and should only ever be used by the most marginalised and oppressed minority in society: racists. Nobody is more discriminated against than racists. Nobody wants to hire a racist, live next door to a racist, or wants their daughter to marry a racist. Racists get fired simply for expressing their deeply felt beliefs. All media depictions of racists are negative. Normal people think nothing of threatening violence against racists. If you don't believe me that racists are discriminated against, try going into work tomorrow and being racist in a meeting. Truly, nobody is more persecuted. And the worst thing about Alfie's use of the N-word is that he wasn't even doing a racist joke. He culturally appropriated the N-word from racists to try and make some clever, well-meaning anti-racist points. This is unacceptable. Anyway, Twitter went mental with people piling on Alfie, calling him racist. But so what? Twitter is a constant cacophony of people screaming, "racist." It's completely devalued the meaning of the word. Anyone learning English from Twitter would think that the word racist just means a cool guy who likes to party with his bros. It would have all blown over, but then Alfie shat his pants and apologised, which is the absolute worst possible thing you can do to a Twitter pile-on. He posted this big long notes apology. When I first saw it, I was like, damn, did he rape someone? The only time comedians ever post apologies that long is when they've been accused of sexual harassment and they need to make a big list of excuses and ways they're working to improve themselves. Alfie said, "I agree with all the criticism of the video being circulated and apologise unreservedly for the abhorrent racial language I used. It was recorded in 2015 and years ago I realised my mistake and made every attempt to remove it, not because I was scared of it being found, but because it was wrong and hurtful. I was ignorant. It was a young comedian's arrogant attempt to be transgressive as the routine's intention was to be anti-racist. But it was stupid. I regret it, and have regretted it for a long time. It became clear that me using the language wasn't ever justified, even if trying to undermine it. I've never suffered racism, and now, years later, this material is causing pain to people who have. I apologise deeply for it." Man, I can't believe he apologised when he could have just said, "suck my balls." God, what a pussy. I mean, you wouldn't want Alfie next to you in a Roman shield wall. He'd run for his life as soon as the first Visigoth helmet appeared over the horizon. And Alfie's excuses are lame. He said that it was a long time ago. I mean, it was 2015, not the 1950s. Although, to be fair to him, it was actually a more liberal time when people approached comedy in good faith rather than trying to be offended at anything they could find. And other comedians, such as Stuart Lee and Frankie Boyle, who were well respected, used the N-word around then. He said that he was young, but he wasn't that young. He said he was ignorant, but we know he's a clever guy, and ignorance isn't a legal defence in court. Alfie hoped that showing contrition and subservience would stop the attack, like a baboon presenting its buttocks to an aggressive alpha male. Of course, it did the opposite. It galvanised the mob to attack him more. Apologising says, "Yes, I am guilty. Yes, your pile-on has broken me. Yes, you have power." By participating in their weird Communist Party struggle session, he gave it legitimacy. So the pile-on continued. People dug up other clips of him joking about the usual awful things that comedians joke about: being sexually attracted to teenage girls, a mass death, Saint Greta of Thunberg. Some guy called Stephen Galloway, who goes by the name of Red Collective on Twitter and uses the word comrade a lot, spent the day phoning comedy clubs to get Alfie banned. Imagine spending your day trying to get an artist banned and thinking you're on the right side of history. But it worked. Alfie was removed from the show this weekend at Up the Creek, a comedy club in London. Hilariously, Stephen Galloway then went to the police because he was being harassed on Twitter. Somehow he's allowed to destroy someone's life, but if anybody objects, then that's harassment and a police matter. Seems like he can dish it out, but he definitely can't take it. Other people wish death on Alfie, which is of course the kind and tolerant thing to do. Journalist Asa Winstanley said, "Bully him more." Bully him more, like a 6-year-old watching a pile-on in a playground. Pathetic. And from someone who looks like a waiter in a vegan restaurant, like the token ginger in a group of Islamist hate preachers. the human embodiment of the friend zone. Look at the man bun. It's impressive to see someone put so much work into preserving their virginity. But that's just normal for leftist Twitter maniacs. You'd think that real life comedians would rally round to support Alfie. After all, any decent comedian has lots of material that's offensive to someone. Of course, no comedians did, apart from people like me, Andrew Lawrence, Nick Dixon and the Trigonometry lads. People that Alfie probably doesn't actually want to be associated with because we don't even try to appease the puritanical woke bigots who police comedy. And Joe Jacobs and Ishan Akbar stuck up for him as well because they're cool guys with big balls. All other UK comedians are spineless pussy holes hiding from the tiger, hoping it'll eat them last instead of punching the tiger in the dick. In fact, some comedians actually got the boot stuck into Alfie. Tom Mayhew, whose mum shops at QuickSave, waited 48 hours to check that it was the approved opinion before slagging off Alfie. Look at the state of this guy. He looks like he owns one pair of underpants. The donkey nobody wants to ride. This last sausage roll in Greggs. I can feel my credit score dropping just talking about him. He looks like the sort of person who asks their mates to transfer them 40 pence. I'm just kidding, he doesn't have any mates. He looks like what you'd get if you explained paedophiles to a 7-year-old and then asked them to draw you one. At least him tweeting about Alfie distracted him from committing a school shooting. He looks like if you cut him in half, both halves would live. These are people who can't bully in real life because they're drizzling weak, so they do it on social media instead. And some comedians have criticised me for speaking out when Alfie just wants this to go away. But as the only comedian with an official certificate of non-racism from the Live Comedy Association, I'm uniquely qualified to comment on this. Comedians should have solidarity and should speak out against threats to their freedoms, including Alfie. Comedy clubs are a sacred space. All the best comedy happens in the margins of acceptability. We need to be able to offend people and make mistakes. You think greatness just arrives? Greatness comes after a lot of trial and error. You need to be able to crash the car to find out how fast you can go. We don't need to be policed because we're performing in front of a jury, the audience, who won't like it if we say something genuinely unacceptable. Also, people need to get a grip. It's just a word. It's not a magic spell that will summon demons and open a portal to Wakanda. Anyway, you can see unacceptable comedy by signing up to my Patreon. From as little as £3 a month, you can get exclusive content and live streams and stuff. There's one next week. Anyway, please like and subscribe and share it with your mates and stuff. Thanks for listening. I've been Leo Kears. Goodbye. Bye bye.